It is now day 96 of our 1000 Dawns, and the journey continues. But today, we turn the page because phase 1 of Operation Phosararocus is now complete. Now we are at stage 2. And what is stage 2, you may be asking? Well, it's very, very straightforward. From now until such time passes, we need to acquire more money. We need to acquire more money than we have ever done before. In reality, we need to either double or treble our monthly income. And that's a bit of a stretch, ladies and gentlemen, because there will be people, and I would agree, that from when I first announced this operation, even to get to the end of phase 1 was like ascending a mountain. This is double this, or even treble this, if you want to be specific. It's the equivalent of Hannibal's forces getting across the Pyrenees, and the entire army thought, well, that was easy, and then Hannibal turns around and says, no, those were the Pyrenees. Those are the Alps. However, there is also a lot to be said about, well, consider this. Hannibal and his troops, his entire army, did manage to get past the Alps and then plunge their way straight into northern Italy. So it's not that it's it. And that's the thing I think I'm trying to emphasize, is that it's nowhere near as hard, or it doesn't need to be anywhere near as hard as people want to make it out to be. And realistically, now that we've sort of discussed that, guess what? And for preface, if at first you come across a situation that looks fairly difficult and doesn't have an easy answer, you first have to automatically assume that the problem at hand is far, far easier to solve than it has any other right to. Because, stupidly enough, sometimes the best solutions are the most simplest and the most sound. In this case, it couldn't be any more simpler. We need more money. Okay, but doubling and trebling income monthly is not exactly what I would call easy. So what are the other story beats that surround what we're at the moment? If we were to say minimum double our monthly income, that means we would have to come away with making at least 3,400 odd quid a month. So how exactly are we going to do that? Logically, there would be an argument to be made about, guess what? Well, get promoted at work harder, and guess what? Rewards will come very naturally your way. That seems like the most logical solution of them all. Although the problem with this one is that will take at least 3 or so years of staying where I am and rising through the ranks. And whilst it's certainly a more long-term solution, I'm also trying to think of, well, guess what? We don't need to wait around that long for those sorts of things to come about. What about right now? What exactly have we got right now that we can use to our advantage? Well, first of all, since we have at least 3 YouTube channels right now that are all monetized, and by the end of May, if all goes according to plan, this channel as well will be fully monetized, which means that we could run ads on this. We could do all sorts of exciting things, which means that we could increase our income still further. And to be honest, there is a part of me deep down inside where, if I really wanted to put my mind to it, we could make up to anywhere between, I'd say, £300 to £400 extra a month. And I don't think that's not too bad. So all things considered, it's going to be tough. I don't deny that even getting to that stage is a fairly it's more of an art than science. But why not make it a science? Why not just make it a series of probabilities, formulas, experimentation, exploring, not so much algorithms, but the sort of things that you can do, and the sort of things that do warrant discussion. You see, that would be more my sort of idea, is to generate content that would lead to more discussion. It's the sort of thing that people would leap into the comment section head first and, well, watch the comment section devolve into essentially a jungle of activity. But that's good, because jungles are, well, like any other ecosystem, they need things to thrive and they need things to survive. And if I could create content that will keep people coming back again and again, so much the better. Yeah, I know, again, trying to like digest all of this, and it's the sort of thing I've really only started doing ever since I actually started making money off YouTube, I want to say. But there's a lot more to add before we think any further ahead, and that is, how can we make this sort of thing long term? Well, that's a bit of a tricky one, because of everything that's going. Like, I told myself that specifically today, I'm going to focus on editing a lot of other videos, and that's really all I'm going to do, because I've got a lot of editing to catch up on, and, well, whilst all that is going on in the background, I do have the opportunity to sit down and have a hard think about what I should do over the next couple of days, and probably even beyond that, like into next year. And that's kind of where it's a good thing that the second phase of our operation is literally going to begin with preparation, because now that we have actually achieved what I set out to do initially, now we're into the stage of, well, what exactly is next? The other thing that I had in mind to consider, because that would also be following into like long term, but maybe more short term, and there's nothing too wrong about short term plans, but the problem with having things short term is that if they work, so much the better. But let's get into short term. Game shows, the lottery. Now, to be fair, with how rare it is to like win even so much as like 10 quid on the lottery, it's not exactly what I would call long term, or not exactly. It's a glorified gamble more than anything, and yeah, I'm not entirely sure gambling is particularly from where I stand, like long term or short term, not necessarily the smartest move in my opinion, because listen, there's a big difference in my opinion between playing roulette, playing poker, playing free card poker, playing baccarat, playing blackjack. There's a big difference between playing those games and actually gambling, because gambling is leaving everything to luck, and it's not. I'm not too sure if I recommend like leaving things to luck, especially because if don't start betting things that you can't afford to lose or afford to leave up to luck. That's not really that, in my opinion, from my experience and in my opinion, that's not a good idea. Game shows, on the other hand, I have, well, literally nothing to gamble on apart from, well, applying for them and seeing whether or not they get back in touch and stuff like that. I won't exactly say how many I've applied for since the beginning of May, but however, I'll keep doing it until, you know what, I strike lucky, and, well, we'll see exactly what happens. I'm nothing if not competitive in terms of, well, guess what? There's no rules saying I can't, and guess what? I'll keep going until sooner or later the beast will strike and the beast will get fed. It's an opportunity, if you want to put it in another way. But besides these, I'm not exactly too sure about what short term could possibly bring. What I do know for now is that's sort of where things lie as of this moment. There's a lot of work to be done, but how are we going? Well, what is the work in question? We'll find out in the next couple of weeks, no doubt. Meantime, I'll serve you guys again next time. Thank you.